A lot to be happy about if you're a fan of Team WaR as far as this roster is concerned. 5 players, all of which were on the cusp of making the World League at one point at the beginning of the season. However, they're in a pool with Gen G and Enigma 6. So how far could their run go at Champs? Well, we're about to find out in this episode. What up, COD fans? Welcome back. Good to see you guys. IHOLDSHIFT. Again, like I mentioned in the intro, we're dealing with Team WaR. A squad that, again, is made up with a lot of firepower and, again, players that are really looking to close off 2019 on a better foot than where they started it, considering that Lightning Pandas had such an impressive Vegas and then weren't able to even get through the PLQ with really any wins at all. So for 3 of these 5 players, again, coming from that Lightning Panda squads, will they find the redemption run here in Champs? I will say it will be a difficult run as they're in a very difficult pool with both Gen G, Enigma 6, and as well Fuego Gaming from the open bracket. So let's take a look at this pool very quickly. Again, we just mentioned all the teams, but this roster in specific consists of Josh, Dave, Defrag, PD, and Vortex. Josh, Dave, and PD all playing from that Lightning Pandas team, but it's not just that, because Factor Evolution is represented from Defrag, who played with them during the PLQ, and Imperial as what Vortex played with during the PLQ. So when it comes to this team's chances in this pool, you have to figure that their experience does account for a lot. The biggest thing is, will they be able to get through such a strong team like Gen G and a squad in E6 that has question marks surrounding it, but have looked solid across a number of different moments throughout the entirety of this season? It just comes down to, will they actually show up at the event? On the opposite side, you're also dealing with Fuego Esports, a squad that consists of Mad Cat, who again also played on Lightning Pandas. So in this pool, 4 of the 5 players that were on LP are going to be represented here. Let's take a look at this roster more specifically, though, as again, I already mentioned through the roster, but we'll hit it one more time. It's going to be Josh, Dave, Defrag, PD, and Vortex. We've already mentioned their PLQ experience, but you can see that none of these players actually played when they were at Fort Worth. You go forward to London, and there were 3 different teams that were represented between these 5 players. Kairos was the roster that finished second at London. Josh and Defrag played with that team. Team Alliance finished top 12. That's a team that Dave and PD were able to play for. And Vortex got himself some more experience as he played with the squad Lands, but they only finished top 24. Fast forward to Anaheim. 3 of these players were on Team WaR. That was Josh, Dave, and Defrag. Again, some of their comrades that were making up that squad were eventually promoted and picked up to join units in the CWL. So again, maybe a little bit of salt in the wounds there, because again, all 3 of those players were very close to making it to World League at one point in time, and to see 2 of their teammates from Anaheim get picked up has to definitely hurt a little bit. But this squad did have a very impressive time at Miami as they finished second place. It was a very good run for them as they accumulated a 24-10 overall map record, which is, again, very impressive. They would go through their first 3 rounds without much of an issue, and then in round number 4 of the winners bracket, the one that was needed to qualify, this squad of Team WaR went up against Hybrid Gaming, another roster that's made up with players that have been on the cusp of the World League or have been substitutes in the World League for pretty much the entirety of the season. They would beat them at a 3-0 total, a very impressive battle to say the least. And then you go to winners round 5, they would go up against that Excalibur team that not only beat Mindfreak, but also took down their counterparts in this pool of Fuego Gaming in game 5 of round 4. So round 5, Team WaR, Excalibur, went to 4, Team WaR able to take it 3-1. You go down to round 6, they play up against Sicario Gaming. Again, another roster that's a conglomerate of more players that have been in the Pro League or have been on the cusp of the Pro League. And then in round 7, they would go up against the boys, where they would eventually find their first loss 3-1. Going down to the losers bracket, they would be in the finals, where they would play up against Mazer, and they were able to beat them 3-1. Another team that consists of a lot of former pros from this year. Going then to the grand finals, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but in case you missed that grand finals, it did take 2 best of 5s, and not just the fact that it took a reset, but it took all total of 10 games to get it done. It was a 3-2 for Team WaR the first time, and then a 3-2 for the boys the second. There's a lot to be really excited about when it comes to Team WaR in specific. Obviously, they've got themselves figured out. The fact of the matter is that you've got 3 players in Josh, Dave, and Defrag that are very familiar with each other from Anaheim, but then you add PD back into the mix, who is familiar with Josh and Dave from the PLQ, and Vortex, who has looked very, very solid in his performance throughout Miami. This is a squad that absolutely can start tearing apart some CWL teams. The biggest question is, will they be able to get the job done against a team like Gen G? And more importantly, can they get the job done versus a team like Enigma 6? Now, Gen G lately has been a little bit all over the place. Mostly, it comes down to their control has not been fantastic. It's been good, but not fantastic. Same thing when it came down to their search and destroy. They've been a little bit all over the place, where it's kind of a guessing game as far as which Gen G are we going to get for search and destroy when it comes to champs. Enigma 6, though, you focus on this squad specifically. With their new roster, they're 3-5 in the hardpoint, 3-3 in the search, and 1-4 in the control. Most specifically, in that 3-5 of the hardpoint, it sounds worse than it is. If you missed that Enigma 6 video, I explained this at a little bit greater length because the differential in the average score for their hardpoints is only at a minus about 12, which is not bad at all. Again, it just means that their losses are close and their wins are generally pretty close as well. The big thing is, if you're looking at this from Team WaR, where is your success story here? I personally think map 3. You figure that you're going to be going up against Fuego. You shouldn't have too much of a problem against them, you would think, based on what they were able to do against all of the other components of those former pros in the open bracket at Miami they were able to do. Again, granted, teams like Sicario and Mazer and those guys only had a handful of days of practice, and they should be a better squad by the time they get to champs. But same storyline for Team WaR. You would figure, right? I mean, it just comes down to the quality of practice that they're able to get between Miami and then champs. So for me, I think map 3 is going to be a very pivotal one when it comes down to the pool matches here specifically. That's where Gen G is their weakest. That's where Enigma 6 is their weakest. And if you're Team WaR trying to break into those CWL teams, I think you need to find a way to be very, very clean on the control specifically. Now, the reason why I harp so much on the control is because this team has already showed how good they are at search and destroy and hardpoint, splitting the difference essentially as they went through those 2 best-of-5 series against the squads of the boys. And then previously, before that, they were able to do very well against Mazer and as well against Sicario and as well against Hybrid. So you should feel pretty confident, I think, about your search and destroy and your hardpoint. Obviously, you want to get better there, but I think as far as where you can find a big advantage in this pool, it's going to be in the control. And with the familiarity that Team WaR has with one another, that's where I expect them to actually have a major pro coming into this pool as the 3rd seed when you're looking for them to possibly break the top 2. It's going to be tough, though. I'll just say it that much. I mean, Gen G is looking like a major competitor and a potential favorite as far as making it to Sunday at least, if not getting to the finals. But also, again, a lot of you guys don't like that I say this, but I really do like the mentality and the approach that Enigma 6 have had, even in their loss to Evil Geniuses at Miami. You saw what they were going for. They just need to clean things up a touch. So just for me, it comes down to, will Enigma 6 get better? And will they be good enough to take down the familiarity and the kind of cohesiveness that Team WaR has? And beyond that, can Team WaR find a way to get slightly stronger in the hardpoint and search and destroy, but become maybe a dominant force in the control? Because that's where I see the biggest opportunity for the open teams in specific, as far as the weaknesses go for the CWL squads, is in that control map set. I will not be saying the exact same thing about Fuego, simply because, again, I think that control takes a lot of familiarity with your teammates to really kind of pull it off as far as how you're going to approach, how do you hit, things like that. And Fuego is much newer and with lesser overall experience than this Team WaR squad is, which is why I favor them more than Fuego going into this. So as we take a look back at what this pool looks like, again, it's a very interesting one because Gen G and Enigma 6, they're both very solid. I think Enigma 6 underperformed as far as the expectations would go for them at Miami, considering the fact that they've gone back and forth between top 6 finishes and top 16 finishes. I think this Enigma 6 team is going to be very well rehearsed going into Pool B, and it's going to be a battle, I think, between E6 and Team WaR as far as who's able to find that number 2 spot. Fuego's going to be an interesting spot as well, but again, you can't overlook them, I think. If Team WaR just comes out and they only prepare for the CWL teams, I would not be surprised for Fuego to kind of, again, show their namesake and bring the fire to potentially be an upset potential against Team WaR. But I think it would be a major upset. If I were to be a betting person, I would bet heavily on Team WaR beating Fuego. It would be a pretty even bet, I think, spread between them and Enigma 6. And then Gen G, of course, the big favorite, is going to be a very tough opponent. But if Team WaR can come out, do well in the control, maybe take Gen G surprise in one of the search and destroys, and then just split the differences in the hard points, I think that you're going to see a lot of game 5s in this Pool B, and I think that map 3 is going to be the biggest determinant as far as who wins, who loses, who goes home, who continues on. So that's going to do things for Team WaR. I didn't have a chance to sit down with anybody from the squad. It just came down to just not having enough time to get the interviews put together by the time that I wanted to release the video. So Ludi was the guy that I was kind of talking to see if he would be able to join me, and not able to find a cohesive time between, you know, the two regions. So unfortunately not going to be able to do that. And Ludi is their coach as well. So again, that's important to note if you're looking for any kind of insight. Ludi, again, a very notable player and very good mind for the game as well. So that's another kind of benefit when it comes to Team WaR, and will they be able to actually overcome some of these CWL squads. Again, we're continuing on with our 32 on 32 throughout the next couple of days and really a week and a half before we get to champs. So if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you join that, and you can also join the notification gang by ringing the bell and getting those little pop-up notifications of when these videos do pop up live. Till the next one, though, hope you guys keep holding it down. So long.